I understand a few years back you had some health issues, Richard.
I had a stroke in 2016, and I had high blood pressure, and just running the business was too much, and I had a stroke.
But we didn't know he had high blood pressure at the time.
Oh, wow.
And he honestly, he works out every day. And sometimes twice. He'll do like the cardio in the mornings, and then he'll go to the gym. He eats really healthy. It was just this total out of the blue, like what? He's 47. So he was young.
Blindsided, huh?
Totally blindsided.
Wow.
That he had this stroke.
Well, one night my mouth was dropped, and she said something, and I never saw it. And we got online and we did all the sounds and the tongue test and all that.
Like the signs of a stroke.
Yes.
Do these tests to
and
see.
I passed everything.
He passed everything. I'm like, well, maybe he was just tired.
And I was
So just one side of your mouth was drooping?
Right.
And I was like, oh no, that's a sign of a stroke.
And I was so tired. I thought I just had some kind of bug. And we ended up going to Louisiana. I think it was right after Manresa.
He had gone to Manresa.
And I went to 620 Mass. And then I came back to my dad's house, and she was getting ready, and she said, "You can't see that?" And I looked in the mirror, and it was like dropped.
Wow.
And she called my sister. She was going back to Texas, and she called my sister. She said, "Make sure he goes to the hospital," because I didn't want to go because I'm not a big hospital fan. And
well, he's a man. He's like, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing.
So I'm just tired.
Yeah. But there were a few other things too, like he'd miss his turn. Like we're on the phone, or he's on speakerphone, and he's like, "Oh, I missed my turn." This is the same drive that he takes every day.
Oh.
So he'd miss his turn, or I'd wake up, and we would. He'd leave around 6 or 6:30, whatever. I'm not sure of the time, but I would wake up a half hour, an hour later, and the front door was the door was unlocked, the garage was open.
Oh, wow.
And that
just
would
totally
things
forgetting.
like that
Right.
would just, like a lot of things like that. And I'm just like, that's just so weird, but we just kind of blamed it on him being tired.
And that was all in the same day.
Within about a week or so.
Yeah.
Oh.
The whole thing probably happened a month before I actually went to the hospital.
A couple of weeks.
But going to
before.
Manresa that year, I missed a turn. And I remember my dad saying, "Pitcher never misses turns," because I always drive. And, I'm always pretty stable. And, I missed the turn.
Yeah,
and,
he's not like, a lot of times people will like, "Oh, I missed my turn because I was distracted," or "I forgot to add this ingredient," or whatever. Not Pitcher. Pitcher, he just has one of these brains that he just doesn't forget things. Like I forget things.
The small
time.
thing.
Like I'm very scatterbrained. He's not. And for him to forget a turn, or to miss a turn, or to forget something is very out of the ordinary for him. Very out of character.
Wow.
But we're at the hospital, and my sister was like, "Pitcher," because we're supposed to go out to eat. And when you go to Louisiana, there's certain restaurants you really want to go to. And one I was really looking forward to. And it's like my sister was saying, he's going to be so mad because she didn't think I had a stroke. And
because he didn't always droop. It was periodically.
Yeah, after that, it was gone. And and I had no really big signs. And so they did the CAT scan, and then they did a ink CAT scan, and they saw I did have a stroke. And
wow.
And then I was in the hospital. This was like right before Thanksgiving. And I was in the hospital for like 3 or 4 days. And I went through physical and I was like perfect. I do all the tests, and, I was walking around the hospital, and I saw Miss Laura, the one that had Cormdeo. She was a nurse there, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And it's like, I had a stroke. But I couldn't tell. And I guess looking back, I had some personality changes, and
really,
which like the better I got, the more I could see. And, I went through a little depression because I could see stuff that I said to her, or, I just wasn't myself.
it was out of character.
Right.
Yeah. Something you probably wouldn't have said at all.
Right. And one of the kids, I was still working out. Everything was mentally right. But one of the kids had a medical issue that had to be taken care of in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
And we had planned that we'd go to this hospital in the summertime. And I was driving to Lafayette to make sales calls. And she called me up, and there's a spot. we have to leave Friday. And-
Katie, we'll just say Katie.
Yeah.
Katie was having some struggles. And so I called him up and said, that a spot opened. We need to leave now.
Okay.
So it was probably about this time of the year, but we hadn't planned on going until the summer.
And getting back to my OCD, it just blew my mind. It's like, kind of in my mind, like she left me. And she had to get an apartment because it was like going to be a
Extended stay.
Extended stay. And it was like, I think it was more of doing it so quick that I just my brain couldn't wrap around it. And it's like, I knew she didn't leave me, but in the back of my mind, she's like, she left me, and HP and I would still go visit them, but it was just a hard time. And
they were, what I like to tell people is his reality wasn't real. The way his brain, while it was healing, it would interpret situations incorrectly.
Wow. And that's what happened in that instance.
Right. Yeah. So he thought I had taken Katie and left him.
Wow.
But I knew she didn't, but I was still struggling with it, and I think the devil was kind of hidden me and saying, like, she left you. And, it's like, and, but it was just a hard time in our lives.
Very difficult.
So you noticed, so let me go back. So you noticed the droop. How long, and you said it was a week before you had it looked at?
No, it's probably
probably
month.
about 2 or 3.
Oh, wow. That long.
Because it never,
2-3 weeks, a month.
It didn't
We're not quite
keep
sure.
happening. And I mean, I remember, where did we go? We went somewhere to pick up for the church.
I don't know.
And Marie went inside. I think it was the Catfish Dinners when we were at the little community center.
Okay.
And I was in the car and I fell asleep waiting for her. Like, that's how tired I was. I just fall asleep and, and I just felt something was, because I wake up like at 3:30 to 4 every day.
Okay.
And I just thought I was just worn out and my brain couldn't think that something's wrong with me. It's just, I had some kind of bug that was making me tired. And
so what finally got you to go into the doctor?
Me being stubborn.
calling my sister and
Yeah, it's, I called his sister. I said, you need to make sure he goes because he's not listening to me. And I think that him not listening was a symptom of the stroke. Like, he couldn't make sense that it doesn't make sense that I would have a stroke. I'm too young, I'm just tired.
Healthy exercise and all of that. Yeah.
Right. So it was, like he said, I don't know, it's hard for him to hear, some of the things that he did. It embarrasses him. It upsets him.
But you weren't yourself.
But that's what I told him.
Right.
It's like, if you break your leg, you're not going to be able to walk on it well until it's healed.
And people understand that
that if you're going to walk or it's going to hurt or and that's the same thing that I tell him. And like you said, his personality changed, his sense of humor.
Did a procedure have to be done? What kind of procedure?
They're just healing.
Just healing,
rest,
yeah.
Lots of rest.
So you had a stroke, then you just had to rest and heal up.
Rest and heal.
And probably medication, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the blood pressure.
Right.
Wow. That must be very difficult. Not at least if you had a procedure done or if something medically could have been done, it might have been a little easier to deal with.
Right. And I think the most difficult, Rudy, was not knowing if I'd get my husband back.
Oh, if he'd ever be the same.
I don't know if I'm telling more than he wishes me to tell, but like I mentioned, his sense of humor changed. It got mean. And he does not have a mean bone in his body. And, I had put on a few pounds and he would make fun of my weight and he'd laugh and laugh. And it was having to reteach him, honey, that's not funny.
Yeah.
And he'd say, it's not. And I say, no, it's not funny. And so that's just like a small.
Like you're married to a different person.
I was married to a different person.
For a while. Wow.
Yeah.
Did it make you angry?
It made me sad.
Very sad.
Very sad.
Now, did you realize that you were doing this?
Not until after.
No.
That must be tough having to think back about it, something that you've done, but it wasn't really you.
It wasn't him. Yes. And I tell him that all the time. I never fault him for the things he said. The things that he thought, I never fault him because it wasn't him. There was a brain injury and he just needed time to recover. And thankfully, I think he's 100% back.
Yeah, it still bothers me because the way I am, I don't give excuses. And, there's either, I can't say I did this because of my brain. It's like I did it and that's all that counts. And, I don't really like talking about the stroke and, it's painful to think about it. But it's like, that's kind of what helps us grow. And, I was thinking about this interview and it's like, when you marry your soulmate, when you really listen to God about who you should marry, stuff like this is easy. Like if I was in bed with a diaper, she would be at my side. I mean, there's no doubt that she would never say, I want a divorce. I can't, this is not the guy I married. I mean, if I wouldn't have got married, she would have been at my side. And, and that's what really counts. And letting God set you up with marriage and listen to God. And it's just been great to have somebody like her. And
how different do you think it would have been if you weren't as strong in your faith going through this trial?
It would have been just, I don't even think there's a word to say how different it would be. There were days, and at the time, Katie was having some struggles of her own. And I never told him the bulk of it. Afterwards, now that he's healed, but while he was healing, his brain didn't need stimulation. He needed to just focus on, he needed his brain to be quiet. So I didn't really share everything that was going on with Katie, with him. So a lot of that I felt like I was doing on my own by choice. It was such a difficult time because our lives have been so easy. Growing up, we've always been the prayers. We've always been the people that, people came to us and said, we need you to pray for this. We need you to pray. We've never had to be prayed for. And knowing with our, to answer your question, having that faith, there were days that I was so exhausted and so spent emotionally and physically, I couldn't pray. But I knew that my choir family, my Women of Mercy family, I knew they were praying for me. And knowing that is what got me through. Because just to repeat, there were days I was too exhausted to pray. And I literally felt some mornings that the prayer was what was getting me out of bed in the morning. Like I physically felt people pulling me out of bed with their prayers. And I had never experienced that before. And so, yes, I feel that in that way, knowing the power of prayer and being able to recognize what it was and that we were going to get through this somehow, we might not be the same, but I knew we would get through it somehow.